So, what do you all think about our picnic spot?
I love it!
It's perfect, honey.
Great, let's find a table. So, what do you all think about our picnic spot?
I love it!
It's perfect, honey.
Great, let's find a table. So, what do you all think about our picnic spot?
I love it!
It's perfect, honey.
Great, let's find a table. So, what do you all think about our picnic spot?
I love it!
It's perfect, honey.
Great, let's find a table. So, what do you all think about our picnic spot?
I love it!
It's perfect, honey.
Great, let's find a table.
His tie was loosened. His sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His jaw covered in stubble that suggested he had not seen the inside of his penthouse bathroom in at least 2 days. Billionaires were not supposed to look like this. Billionaires were supposed to be untouchable. Polished. Existing in a separate universe where exhaustion and worry could not reach them. But Thaddeus Crane looked like a man who had been dragged through something that money could not fix. "You're awake." His voice came out rough. Almost angry. Denise tried to sit up. Her body protested. Every muscle aching like she had run a marathon she did not remember entering. What happened? What happened? Thaddeus repeated her words back to her. Not a question. An accusation. What happened is that you collapsed in my kitchen. What happened is that my daughter found you on the floor surrounded by broken glass. What happened is that my son called 911 while Josephine screamed so loud the neighbors 3 properties over probably heard her. Denise closed her eyes. The memories came back in fragments. Reaching for the pot on the top shelf. The world tilting sideways. The strange sensation of her legs simply deciding they no longer wanted to hold her upright. "I'm sorry. I did not mean to frighten them." "You did not mean to frighten them." Thaddeus stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the linoleum. He walked to the window. Stopped. Walked back. His hands were shaking. Denise had never seen his hands shake before. "Do you know what the paramedics told me when they loaded you into that ambulance? They told me your blood pressure was dangerously low. They told me your blood sugar had crashed so severely it was a miracle you were conscious at all. They asked me when you had last eaten, and I could not answer them." He stopped in front of her bed, looking down at her with something in his eyes she could not quite name. "I could not answer them, Denise. Because in 7 months of you living under my roof, caring for my children, becoming the heartbeat of my household, I realized I had never once seen you sit down and eat a full meal. That is not true." "It is true." Mrs. Pruitt confirmed it. "She said you always serve the children first. Then you serve me, on the rare occasions I am home for dinner. Then you clean the kitchen. Then you pack lunches for the next day. And somewhere in that endless cycle of giving, you simply forget to feed yourself." Denise looked away. The ceiling tile shaped like Texas suddenly very interesting. "Or maybe you do not forget." Thaddeus's voice dropped lower. "More dangerous. Maybe you remember perfectly well. Maybe you simply do not believe you deserve to eat until everyone else is taken care of. Maybe you have spent so long putting yourself last that you have forgotten you are a person who requires sustenance to survive. You do not understand. Then explain it to me." He sat on the edge of her bed, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with the coffee he had clearly been drinking for hours. "Explain to me why a woman who makes sure my children take their vitamins every morning has not filled her own iron prescription in 3 months. Explain to me why a woman who tucks my daughter into bed with warm milk and honey has been surviving on cold coffee and whatever scraps are left on plates she clears from the table." Denise felt something cracking inside her chest. A wall she had spent 38 years building. Brick by brick. Survival strategy by survival strategy. Because it does not matter. What does not matter? Me. The word came out small. Barely a whisper. "I do not matter. Not like they do. Not like you do. I am the help, Thaddeus. I am the woman you hired to care for your children because you could not bear to look at them after your wife died. I am the nobody from nowhere who showed up at your door with a second-hand suitcase and a certificate from a nanny agency. I am not the kind of person that billionaires sit beside in hospitals at 3 in the morning. I am not the kind of person who gets to matter. Silence. The fluorescent lights continued their humming. Somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped. A nurse laughed at something another nurse said. The world continued spinning. But in that small hospital room, something had shifted. Something had broken open that could not be closed again. Thaddeus reached out. His fingers brushed against her hand. Just barely. Just enough. You are wrong. His voice cracked on the second word. You are so completely wrong that I do not even know where to begin correcting you. But I am going to try. I am going to spend however long it takes making you understand that you matter. That you have always mattered. That from the moment you walked into my home and brought my children back to life, you have mattered more than anyone I have ever known. Denise felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She did not try to stop them. Why? Why do you care? Thaddeus lifted her hand. Pressed his lips against her knuckles. The gesture so gentle it almost broke her entirely. Because I love you. Because I have loved you for months and been too much of a coward to say it. Because when Josephine called me screaming that you were not waking up, I understood for the first time what my children felt when their mother died. I understood what it means to face a world without someone you cannot imagine losing. The door opened. A nurse walked in. Took one look at the scene before her and quietly backed out again. But the moment was already shattered. Reality rushing back in. Denise pulled her hand away. Not because she wanted to. Because she did not know how to hold something so precious without dropping it. You do not love me. You are grateful. There is a difference. There is a difference. And I know which one this is. Thaddeus stood. Straightened his rumpled shirt. Tried to reassemble himself into the composed billionaire the world expected him to be. The doctor will be in shortly. She is going to tell you things you need to hear. Things about your health. Things about why you cannot keep living like you are invisible. And when she is done, we are going to have a longer conversation. About everything. He walked toward the door. Stopped with his hand on the frame. I am not leaving, Denise. Not this hospital. Not your life. You can push me away as many times as you need to. I am still going to be here. Because that is what people do when they love someone. They stay. The door closed behind him. And Denise Abra lay in her hospital bed. Staring at the ceiling tile shaped like Texas. Wondering how she had gotten here. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, she had finally found something worth staying alive for. If you are already curious about how these two wounded souls found each other, do me a favor. Tap that subscribe button for Billionaire Stories with Mr. Lawson. Turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. Because this story is just getting started. Now let me take you back. 6 months before that hospital room. 6 months before Thaddeus Crane said the word love out loud. Back to the day Denise Abra first walked through the gates of an estate so large it had its own zip code. Back to the day everything changed. The Crane estate sat on 17 acres of manicured grounds in Greenwich, Connecticut. The kind of property that did not appear on regular real estate listings. The kind of property that changed hands through private brokers and discreet phone calls between people whose net worth required scientific notation to express properly. Denise had looked it up on the train ride from the city. She had scrolled through photos on her cracked phone screen. Trying to prepare herself for what she was walking into. The photos had not prepared her. Nothing could have prepared her for the wrought iron gates that swung open silently at her approach. Nothing could have prepared her for the quarter-mile driveway lined with oak trees that had probably been planted before the Civil War. Nothing could have prepared her for the house itself. House. The word felt almost insulting. This was a mansion. A palace. 47 rooms spread across 4 floors of Georgian architecture. More windows than Denise could count. A fountain in the circular driveway featuring marble cherubs that probably cost more than every apartment she had ever rented combined. The driver who had picked her up from the train station opened her door. Mrs. Pruitt will meet you at the service entrance around back. Service entrance. Of course. Denise picked up her second-hand suitcase. The one with the broken wheel that she had to drag at an awkward angle. The one that contained everything she owned in the world. Which was not much. 3 dresses she had bought at the thrift store on Atlantic Avenue. 2 pairs of sensible shoes. Underwear and bras she was embarrassed were so worn. A single photo of her grandmother. Her nursing school diploma that she had never managed to put to proper use. And a Bible her grandmother had given her the day she aged out of the foster care system at 18. The Lord will make a way, her grandmother had said. Pressing the worn leather into Denise's hands. Even when there seems to be no way. You remember that, baby. You remember that you are never as alone as you feel. Her grandmother had died 6 months later. A heart attack in her sleep. Peaceful, the doctors said. As if that made it hurt less. Denise walked around the side of the mansion. Past rose gardens and topiary shaped like animals. Past a greenhouse larger than her childhood elementary school. Past a swimming pool so blue it looked like liquid sapphire. The service entrance was a modest door at the back of the estate. Almost invisible if you did not know to look for it. Denise knocked. The door opened to reveal a tall white woman in her 60s. Silver hair pulled into a severe bun. Posture so straight it made Denise's lower back ache just looking at her. Eyes the color of slate that scanned Denise from head to toe with undisguised assessment. You must be the new girl. Denise Abra. From the Worthington Agency. I know who you are. I approved your file. The woman stepped back. Gestured for Denise to enter. I am Mrs. Evangeline Pruitt. I manage the household. The staff. The schedules. The everything. Quite frankly, since Mrs. Crane passed and Mr. Crane decided to process his grief by never being home. Denise stepped into a mudroom. Hooks on the wall for coats. Cubbies for shoes. A bench for sitting while you changed from outdoor footwear to indoor slippers. You are the 7th candidate the agency has sent in 4 months. Mrs. Pruitt did not soften this information. Simply stated it as fact. The children have driven away every single one. Solomon threw a glass at the wall. Josephine refuses to speak. Together, they have made it their mission to ensure no one replaces their mother. I am not here to replace anyone. Mrs. Pruitt paused. Looked at Denise with something that might have been the beginning of respect. Good answer. Change your shoes. I will show you to your quarters and then introduce you to the children. Denise followed Mrs. Pruitt through a labyrinth of hallways. Past a kitchen larger than most restaurants. Past a laundry room with more machines than a commercial facility. Past doors that led to rooms whose purposes Denise could not even guess. Her quarters were in the east wing. A comfortable suite with a bedroom, sitting room, and private bathroom. More space than Denise had ever had to herself. A window overlooking the rose garden. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. These were Mrs. Crane's mother's rooms when she used to visit. Mrs. Pruitt smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from the bedspread. The children's rooms are just down the hall. You will hear them if they have nightmares. Which they do. Frequently. What should I do when that happens? Whatever you can. Mrs. Pruitt's voice softened almost imperceptibly. They are good children, Miss Abra. Wounded, but good. They did not ask for any of this. None of us did. Denise set her suitcase on the luggage rack. Looked around the room that was now hers. Tried to imagine herself belonging here. She could not. When do I meet them? Now. If you are ready. Denise was not ready. would never be ready. But that had never stopped her before. Solomon Crane was 9 years old. He had his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes and a jawline already suggesting the handsome man he would become. He sat at the kitchen table with a sketchbook in front of him, pencil moving furiously across the page, not looking up when Mrs. Pruitt entered with Denise. "Solomon, this is Miss Abra. She will be your new nanny. She will leave." Solomon still did not look up. "They all leave." "Maybe." Denise pulled out the chair across from him, sat down without being invited. "Or maybe I am more stubborn than you are." That got his attention. Green eyes flickering up, assessing her the same way Mrs. Pruitt had. Looking for weaknesses. Looking for the thing that would make her run. "You are fat." Mrs. Pruitt made a noise of horror. Solomon Crane. But Denise just smiled. The smile she had perfected over years of comments about her body. Comments from foster parents. From classmates. From her ex-husband. From strangers on the street who believed her body was public property available for their critique. "I am. Is that going to be a problem for you?" Solomon blinked. Whatever reaction he had expected, this was not it. "My mother was thin. I am sure she was beautiful." "She was." Solomon's voice cracked. "Just slightly. She was the most beautiful woman in the world and now she is dead and my father cannot even look at us because we remind him of her." The pencil snapped in his grip. He stared at the broken pieces like he did not understand how they got there. Denise reached across the table, gently took the pieces from his hands, set them aside. "I am not going to try to be your mother, Solomon. No one could be. But I am going to be here. Every morning when you wake up. Every night when you go to sleep. Every hour in between. And nothing you say or do is going to change that. You can throw glasses. You can call me names. You can pretend I do not exist. I am still going to be here. Why? Because someone should have said that to me when I was your age. And no one did." Solomon stared at her. Something shifting behind those green eyes. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the first crack in the wall he had built around himself. "My sister is upstairs. She does not talk. Not since the funeral. Will you take me to meet her?" Solomon considered this. Then nodded. Closed his sketchbook with the care of someone protecting something precious. Stood and walked toward the doorway. Paused. "My mother used to make us pancakes on Sunday mornings. Chocolate chip. The other nannies tried to make them but they always got them wrong. I will not try to make your mother's pancakes." "Why not?" "Because those belong to her. We will find our own thing." Solomon nodded. Just once. And then he led Denise upstairs to meet his sister. Josephine Crane was 7 years old. She had hair the color of autumn leaves. Freckles scattered across her nose like constellations. And eyes that held more sorrow than any 7-year-old should know. She sat in the corner of her room. A room decorated in pink and purple and white. Princess canopy over the bed. Stuffed animals lined up on shelves with military precision. A dollhouse in the corner that looked like a miniature replica of the estate itself. She was brushing the hair of a doll. Over and over. The same repetitive motion. Not looking up when Solomon and Denise entered. "Josie!" Solomon's voice changed when he spoke to his sister. Softer. Protective. "This is Miss Abra." Josephine did not respond. "She does not like to be touched," Solomon warned. "She does not like loud noises. She does not like change." Denise nodded. Lowered herself to the floor. Sitting cross-legged at a respectful distance from Josephine. Not encroaching on her space. Just existing nearby. That is a beautiful doll. Denise kept her voice gentle. Calm. Does she have a name? Josephine continued brushing. But her eyes flickered toward Denise. Just for a second. My mother had a doll when she was little. This was a lie. Denise had no idea if her mother had owned a doll. Her mother had abandoned her at a fire station when she was 2 days old. I never got to meet my mother. But I like to think she would have shared her doll with me if she could. The brushing slowed. Sometimes the people we love go away, Denise continued. And it hurts so much we do not know what to do with all that pain. So we stop talking. Or we throw things. Or we just try to make ourselves very, very small so the hurt cannot find us. Solomon sat down next to Denise. Close enough that their shoulders almost touched. But the hurt always finds us anyway, Denise said. So maybe instead of hiding from it, we need to find people who can sit in the hurt with us. People who will not try to fix it or make it go away. People who will just be there. In the dark. Until we are ready to look for the light again. Silence. The clock on Josephine's wall ticked. Seconds becoming minutes. Then Josephine stood up. Walked slowly toward Denise. And placed the doll in her lap. It was an offering. A test. A first tiny step toward trust. Denise accepted the doll. Began brushing its hair with the same gentle strokes Josephine had been using. What is her name? Josephine pointed to a small tag on the doll's dress. Embroidered letters spelling out a name. Cordelia. The doll was named after their mother. Denise kept brushing. And for the next hour, she and Josephine and Solomon sat together in that pink and purple room. Not speaking. Not needing to. Just existing in the same space. It was a beginning. Do you remember the first person who made you feel like you might matter? The first person who sat with you in your darkness without trying to turn on all the lights. Hold on to that feeling as this story continues. And if you want to be sure you catch every moment, every revelation, every twist ahead, make sure you have subscribed to Billionaire Stories with Mr. Lawson. Your support means everything. Now let us continue. The first month established a rhythm. Denise woke at 5:30 every morning. She showered in her private bathroom. Still marveling that she had a private bathroom. Still feeling like a guest in her own life. She dressed in simple clothes that allowed for movement. For crawling on floors building blanket forts. For running in the gardens playing tag. For being whatever these children needed her to be. She made breakfast for Solomon and Josephine. Not chocolate chip pancakes. Never chocolate chip pancakes. Those belonged to Cordelia Crane and always would. Instead, Denise made French toast with strawberries. Scrambled eggs with cheese. Oatmeal with maple syrup and walnuts. She walked them to the private school bus that picked them up at the end of the driveway. Waited until the bus disappeared around the corner before returning to the house. Then she cleaned. Organized. Prepared activities for after school. Researched child psychology on her phone during her lunch break. Read articles about grief in children. About selective mutism. About how to help young people process trauma they did not have words for. She ate the scraps from the children's plates while standing at the sink. She did not notice she was doing this. It was simply habit. Simply the way she had always existed in the world. Taking up as little space as possible. Requiring as few resources as she could manage. Mrs. Pruitt noticed. But Mrs. Pruitt did not say anything. Not yet. The afternoons belonged to the children. Homework help. Art projects. Walks in the garden. Reading sessions in the library where Denise would read aloud while Solomon drew and Josephine played with her dolls. Josephine still did not speak. But she listened. Her eyes tracking Denise's mouth as she formed words. Her tiny fingers sometimes moving along with the rhythm of the sentences. Solomon spoke enough for both of them. Angry rant about his teachers. Complicated questions about life and death and why the world was so unfair. Complaint about the therapist his father made him see twice a week via video call. She wants me to talk about my feelings, Solomon said one afternoon. They were in the greenhouse. Denise was teaching him about different plants. A skill she had learned from her grandmother in the small patch of garden behind her grandmother's apartment. I do not want to talk about my feelings. What do you want to do with them? Solomon considered this. Pulled a weed from one of the flower beds. Threw it in the compost bin. I want to draw them. I want to put them on paper so they are outside of me instead of inside of me. Then do that. Show your therapist your drawings instead of using words. Solomon looked at her. That assessing look she was getting used to. The other nannies told me I had to talk. That drawing was not the same as real therapy. The other nannies were not me. Denise handed him a small trowel. Everyone processes things differently. Your drawings are full of feelings. I see them even when you do not explain them. Maybe your therapist will too. You look at my drawings. Only when you leave them where I can see them. I would never go through your sketchbook without permission. Solomon was quiet. Working the soil with his trowel. Moving earth from one spot to another without any apparent purpose. My mom used to look at my drawings, he finally said. She would hang them on the refrigerator. Even when I got older. Even when I told her it was babyish. She said a home should be full of the art of the people who live in it. That sounds like something a wonderful mother would say. She was. Solomon's voice thickened. She really was. Denise kept working beside him. Not reaching out to touch him. Not trying to fix the moment. Just being there. In the hurt. Like she had promised. Thaddeus Crane was a ghost in his own home. Denise learned this not through direct observation but through absence. Through the office on the third floor that remained perpetually locked. Through the meals Mrs. Pruitt left outside his door that returned half-eaten. Through the children's faces when they passed his wing of the house. When does their father come home? Denise asked Mrs. Pruitt one evening. The children were in bed. The house settling into its nighttime silence. Define home. Mrs. Pruitt poured them each a small glass of sherry. A ritual she had established with Denise. A nightly debrief. His body occupies the third floor when he is not traveling. Which is rarely. His company has offices in 14 countries. There is always somewhere else for him to be. The children miss him. The children have been missing him since before their mother died. Mrs. Pruitt sipped her sherry. He was always working. Building his empire. Cordelia managed the household. The children. The emotional landscape of this family. When she died, there was no one left to manage anything except the money. And money cannot raise children. Does he know? How much they need him? He knows. That is precisely why he stays away. Mrs. Pruitt set down her glass. Guilt is a terrible thing, Miss Abra. It convinces us that our presence causes more harm than our absence. It whispers that the people we love would be better off without us. It lies. But we believe it anyway. Denise thought about this. About the children upstairs. About the man hiding in his office or fleeing to other continents. About the grief that connected them all even as it drove them apart. What was she like? Mrs. Crane. Mrs. Pruitt's face softened. The first time Denise had seen anything resembling tenderness in those slate-colored eyes. She was light. There is no other word for it. When Cordelia walked into a room, the room became brighter. She laughed easily. Loved fiercely. Made everyone around her feel like they were the most important person in the world. How did she die? Ovarian cancer. Diagnosed too late. Stage 4 by the time they found it. Mrs. Pruitt's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly around her glass. She fought for 11 months. Tried every treatment available. Refused to give up because she could not bear to leave her children. But the cancer did not care about her determination. It took her anyway. And Mr. Crane was with her at the end. Held her hand as she took her last breath. And then something in him died too. Mrs. Pruitt finished her sherry. Stood to leave. He is not a bad man, Miss Abra. He is a broken one. There is a difference. Though from the outside, it can be hard to tell. 6 weeks after Denise arrived, Thaddeus Crane came home. It was a Tuesday. Nearly midnight. Denise was in the kitchen making chamomile tea. A habit she had developed. The lavender honey she added helping her sleep in this house that still felt too large and too empty despite its grandeur. She heard footsteps in the hallway. Assumed it was Mrs. Pruitt checking on something before bed. Instead, a man appeared in the doorway. Tall. Dark hair silvering at the temples. A face that might have been handsome if it were not so exhausted. Suit rumpled from travel. Tie loosened. Eyes the exact shade of green she saw every day in Solomon's face. Thaddeus Crane looked at her. And she looked back. Neither spoke for a long moment. You must be the new one. His voice was deeper than she expected. Rougher. Like he had not used it for conversation in a long time. Denise Abra. 7 weeks now. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. The other nannies had not made it past 3 weeks. 7 weeks. Yes. My children have not driven you away yet. Denise turned back to her tea. Adding honey. Stirring slowly. Not giving him the satisfaction of seeing how his sudden presence had accelerated her heartbeat. Your children are wonderful. Whatever driving away they attempted, it came from pain. Not malice. Silence. She could feel him watching her. Studying her the way his children had studied her that first day. Mrs. Pruitt says Josephine let you brush her hair last week. She did. She has not let anyone touch her since the funeral. Denise finally turned. Met his eyes. Saw the grief there. The guilt. The desperate hunger for any news about the children he could not bring himself to face. She is starting to trust me. Slowly. On her own terms. And Solomon. We have an understanding. Denise wrapped her hands around her mug. The warmth grounding her. He shows me his drawings. I do not try to make him talk about his feelings. We work in the greenhouse together. He is teaching me about the birds that visit the garden. Thaddeus leaned against the door frame. Something shifting in his posture. Some tension releasing that he probably was not even aware he carried. Solomon knows about birds. He knows everything about birds. Their names. Their migration patterns. Their songs. He has been keeping a journal. Documenting every species that visits the property. Denise paused. He told me his mother used to take him bird watching. The name. The reference to Cordelia. It landed like a physical blow. Thaddeus straightened. His walls coming back up. His armor reassembling. I should let you finish your tea. I have calls to make. At midnight. Singapore is 12 hours ahead. Business does not sleep. He turned to leave. Denise should have let him go. It was not her place to push. He was her employer. The man who signed her paychecks. The billionaire who existed in a universe where women like her were invisible. But something made her speak. They miss you. Thaddeus stopped. Did not turn around. Your children. They miss you. Solomon pretends he does not care, but he asks Mrs. Pruitt every day when you are coming home. Josephine keeps a picture of you under her pillow. The one from your wedding day. She holds it every night before she falls asleep. I am not what they need. With all due respect, Mr. Crane, you have no idea what they need. You are never here long enough to find out. He turned then, eyes flashing with something that might have been anger. Might have been pain. Might have been both. You have been in my home for 7 weeks. You do not know anything about my family. About what we have been through. About why he stopped. Jaw clenching. Hands forming fists at his sides. You are right. Denise did not back down. Did not look away. I do not know your story. I do not know your grief. I only know what I see. 2 children who lost their mother and feel like they are losing their father too. Every day that you are not here is another day they believe they are not worth staying for. That is not. I know. It is not what you intend. It is not what you mean. But intention does not matter to children. Presence does. You are either there or you are not. And right now, you are not. The kitchen fell silent. The only sound the ticking of the clock above the stove. The distant hum of the refrigerator. The pounding of Denise's heart as she realized she had just lectured a billionaire about parenting. She waited for him to fire her. To tell her to pack her second-hand suitcase and be gone by morning. Instead, Thaddeus Crane did something she did not expect. He sat down. Pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. Sank into it like his legs could no longer hold him. Put his head in his hands. I do not know how to be in the same room with them. His voice came out muffled. Broken. Every time I look at Solomon, I see her eyes. Every time I see Josephine's hair, I remember how Cordelia used to braid it. They are living reminders of everything I lost. And I am so afraid. Denise set down her mug. Pulled out the chair across from him. Sat down. Afraid of what? That they will see it. How broken I am. How much of me died with her. That they will realize their father is nothing but a shell pretending to function. And that pretending is even worse than my absence. They already know you are broken, Mr. Crane. They are broken too. That is what grief does. It shatters us into pieces we do not know how to reassemble. Denise kept her voice gentle. But broken people can still love each other. Broken people can still show up. You do not have to be whole to be present. You just have to be there. Thaddeus lifted his head. Looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. How do you know this? How are you so certain? Denise thought about her grandmother. About the foster homes. About her ex-husband and the years of believing she would never escape him. About all the broken pieces of herself she was still learning how to hold. Because I am broken too. And I am still here. They sat in that kitchen until 2 in the morning. Not talking about anything important. Just existing in the same space. 2 broken people recognizing something in each other. And somewhere upstairs, in a pink and purple room, a little girl clutched a wedding photo and dreamed of a time when her family was whole. She did not know it yet. But that midnight conversation was the beginning of everything. The first moment Thaddeus Crane saw Denise Abram not as the help. Not as another temporary fixture in his household. But as a person. A person who might understand. A person who might stay. A person who might, somehow, help him find his way back to the children who needed him. And in doing so, find her own way back to the parts of herself she had abandoned long ago. But that realization would come later. After more midnight conversations. After watching her teach his children to laugh again. After falling in love so slowly and completely that he would not recognize it until she lay unconscious on a hospital bed. After almost losing her. That is how we got to that fluorescent-lit room at St. Vincent Memorial. That is how a billionaire ended up holding the hand of a woman who did not believe she was worth holding. And that is only the beginning of their story. The weeks following that midnight conversation changed everything and nothing at the same time. Thaddeus began appearing at breakfast. Not every morning, but often enough that Solomon stopped asking Mrs. Pruitt when his father was coming home. Often enough that Josephine started setting a fourth place at the table without being asked. He was awkward with them. Stilted. A man trying to remember a language he had stopped speaking. But he was there. And presence, Denise was learning, mattered more than perfection. She watched him struggle through conversations with Solomon about school. Watched him sit silently beside Josephine while she played with her dolls. Watched him trying so hard to be a father again that it made her chest ache. And she watched him watching her. She noticed it first during dinner. The way his eyes followed her as she moved around the kitchen. The way he tracked her hands as she cut Solomon's food into smaller pieces. The way he listened when she read stories to Josephine before bed. She told herself it meant nothing. Told herself he was simply observing his children's caretaker. Evaluating her performance. Ensuring his money was well spent. She told herself these lies because the alternative was too frightening to consider. Denise Abra had learned long ago that hope was a luxury she could not afford. Every time she had allowed herself to want something, life had snatched it away. Better to expect nothing. Better to need nothing. Better to remain invisible even while standing in plain sight. But Thaddeus Crane kept looking at her like she was visible. Like she mattered. And that terrified her more than anything. 3 months after her arrival, Mrs. Pruitt knocked on Denise's door after the children were asleep. "Mr. Crane would like to speak with you." In the library. Denise's stomach dropped. This was it. He had finally decided she was too familiar. Too comfortable. Too much of something that did not belong in his gilded world. She smoothed her dress. The nicest one she owned. Navy blue with small white flowers. Still from the thrift store. Still bearing the faint marks of its previous life. But it was clean and it fit and it was all she had. The library was on the second floor. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Leather chairs arranged around a marble fireplace. The kind of room that existed in movies about old money. The kind of room that made Denise feel like an imposter just by entering it. Thaddeus stood by the window. Looking out at the gardens. The moonlight casting silver shadows across his profile. He turned when she entered. "Miss Abra. Thank you for coming." "Of course, Mr. Crane." Silence stretched between them. He gestured toward one of the leather chairs. "She Saturday." He remained standing. Pacing slightly. Like a man gathering courage for something. "My company is hosting a charity gala next month. The annual Crane Foundation benefit. We raise money for pediatric cancer research." Denise nodded. Not understanding why this required a private conversation. Cordelia used to organize it. Every year. It was her passion project. Her way of giving back. Thaddeus paused by the fireplace. Ran his fingers along the mantel. "Since she died, the board has handled the planning. But I am expected to attend. To give a speech. To be the public face of the foundation. I can stay late with the children that evening. Make sure they are settled before you leave. That is not why I asked you here." Thaddeus finally turned to face her. Something vulnerable in his expression. Something uncertain. "I want you to come with me." Denise heard the words. Processed them. Could not make them make sense. "I do not understand." "The gala. I want you to attend. As my guest." "Mr. Crane, I am the nanny. You are more than that and we both know it." He said it simply. Without pretense. "My children adore you. My household runs better than it has in 2 years because of you." "And I?" He stopped. Looked away. "I do not want to walk into that ballroom alone. I have done it alone for 2 years and I cannot do it again. Not this year. Not when I have spent 3 months watching you bring my family back to life. His eyes found hers again. Please. Come with me. Denise felt the ground shifting beneath her. The careful walls she had built trembling. This was not supposed to happen. Billionaires did not invite their nannies to charity galas. This world did not work like that. People will talk. People always talk. I stopped caring about their opinions when I buried my wife. I do not have anything to wear. That can be arranged. I would not fit in. Those people, your people, they will look at me and see someone who does not belong. Thaddeus crossed the room. Sat in the chair across from her. Close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something woodsy and warm. Denise. First time he had used her first name. It sent a shiver down her spine. I have spent my entire life surrounded by people who belong. People with the right last names and the right bank accounts and the right connections. And not one of them has ever made me feel the way you make me feel. And how is that? Like I might be worth saving. His voice cracked slightly. Like there might be something left of me to find. Denise did not know what to say. Her heart was pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. Every instinct screamed at her to run. To protect herself. To refuse this impossible thing before it destroyed her. But then she thought of the children. Of Solomon asking that morning if she would stay forever. Of Josephine reaching for her hand without hesitation. She thought of her grandmother's words. The Lord will make a way. Maybe this was the way. Maybe after 38 years of surviving, she was finally being offered a chance to live. One condition. Thaddeus leaned forward. Anything. The children come too. Not to the gala itself. But I want them nearby. A suite at the hotel where they can stay with Mrs. Pruitt. Somewhere close enough that I can check on them. Somewhere they know we are not far. Something shifted in Thaddeus's face. A softening. A recognition. You are always thinking of them. They are easy to think of. They are wonderful. Yes. Thaddeus smiled. The first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his whole face. Made him look younger. Made him look like the man he might have been before grief hollowed him out. They are. And so are you. The morning of the gala, a delivery truck pulled up to the estate. Denise stood in the foyer watching Mrs. Pruitt sign for what seemed like an endless stream of boxes. Shoe boxes. Garment bags. Small packages from stores whose names Denise recognized from magazine advertisements but had never imagined entering. What is all this? Mr. Crane's instructions. Mrs. Pruitt handed her a cream-colored envelope. He said you should have options. Denise opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The note inside was written in bold, masculine script. I did not know your size or your preferences. So I had my assistant send one of everything. Keep what you want. Return what you do not. And please, do not argue about the cost. You are the first person in 2 years who has made my children smile. There is no price I would not pay for that. It was signed simply. Thaddeus. Denise spent the next hour opening boxes. Each one revealing something more beautiful than the last. Dresses in every color. Shoes in every style. Jewelry that sparkled under the light. She tried on dress after dress. Feeling ridiculous. Feeling like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. Each one more beautiful than anything she had ever worn. But none of them felt like her. Until she opened the last garment bag. The dress inside was deep burgundy. A color like fine wine. Like autumn leaves. Like the embers of a fire just before it goes out. The neckline was modest but elegant. The sleeves hit just below her elbows. The skirt flowed to the floor in a way that moved like water when she walked. And the cut. The cut was made for a body like hers. Not hiding her curves. Not apologizing for them. Simply celebrating them. Accentuating the fullness of her hips. The curve of her waist. The softness of her arms. Denise stood before the full-length mirror in her room, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at her. She looked beautiful. The thought came unbidden. Unwelcome. Immediately followed by the voices she had spent a lifetime trying to silence. You are fat. You are too much. You take up too much space. Who do you think you are? She closed her eyes. Breathed deeply. Remembered the therapist she had seen briefly after leaving her husband. The one who had told her that those voices belonged to other people. That she had simply internalized them. Made them her own. They are not my voices. She whispered it to her reflection. They do not belong to me. A soft knock at the door. Miss Abra. Josephine's small voice. Can I see? Denise opened the door. Josephine stood there in her pajamas. Hair tangled from sleep. Eyes wide with wonder. And then Josephine spoke. You look like a princess. 3 words. The first words Josephine Crane had spoken in 15 months. Not to a therapist. Not to her father. Not to Mrs. Pruitt. To Denise. Denise knelt down. Took Josephine's hands in her own. Felt tears streaming down her face without caring. What did you say, sweetheart? You look like a princess. Josephine's voice was rusty. Uncertain. Like an instrument that had not been played in too long. A real one. Not a pretend one. Denise pulled her into an embrace. Held her tightly. Felt the small body relax against her. Felt something healing in both of them. Thank you, Josephine. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Mrs. Pruitt appeared in the doorway. Her hand pressed against her mouth. Tears in those slate-colored eyes. Did she just? She spoke. Denise smoothed Josephine's tangled hair. She spoke. That moment should have been the headline of the day. A child's voice restored. A family taking another step toward wholeness. But there was still a gala to attend. And there was still a woman who had to walk into a world that had never wanted her. Now, before we continue to the gala and everything that happens there, I need to pause. If you are feeling invested in Denise's journey, if you are rooting for her to find her place, do me a quick favor. Like this video if you have not already. Subscribe to Billionaire Stories with Mr. Lawson if you are new here. And drop a comment telling me what you think Denise should do. Should she let herself fall for this man? Or is she right to protect her heart? I read every single comment and I want to hear from you. Now let us continue. The Crane Foundation Gala was held at the Pemberton, a historic hotel in Manhattan that had hosted presidents and royalty and celebrities whose names even Denise recognized. The ballroom was legendary. Featured in films. Written about in magazines. Denise had seen photographs. They had not prepared her. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from ceilings painted with murals of clouds and angels. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine reflected the glow of 1,000 candles. Flowers cascaded from every surface. Roses and orchids and lilies in arrangements that must have cost more than her yearly salary. And the people. Hundreds of them. Women in gowns that cost more than houses. Men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. Diamonds and emeralds and sapphires dripping from necks and wrists and ears. Denise stood at the entrance of the ballroom. Her burgundy dress suddenly feeling inadequate. Her grandmother's pearl earrings, the only jewelry she owned, suddenly feeling cheap. You are doing it again. Thaddeus's voice in her ear. Low and warm. Doing what? Making yourself small. Trying to disappear. His hand found the small of her back. A gentle pressure. Grounding her. You are the most beautiful woman in this room, Denise. And I need you to believe that. If not for yourself, then for me. That is objectively untrue. Beauty is not objective. It never has been. Thaddeus guided her into the ballroom. I spent 10 years married to a woman the world considered beautiful. Perfect bone structure. Perfect figure. Perfect everything. And do you know what I learned? What? Beauty has nothing to do with bones or figures or perfection. Beauty is the way you look at my children like they are the most precious things in the world. Beauty is the way you sat with me in my kitchen at 2 in the morning and did not try to fix me. Beauty is the way you fight for everyone around you while refusing to fight for yourself. He stopped. Turned her to face him. That is what I see when I look at you. That is the beauty that takes my breath away. Denise wanted to argue. Wanted to list all the reasons he was wrong. But the way he was looking at her made the words die in her throat. Maybe, just for tonight, she could pretend. Pretend she belonged here. Pretend she was worthy of this dress and this man and this impossible life. Maybe pretending long enough would make it true. The first 2 hours of the gala passed in a blur. Thaddeus introduced her to more people than she could keep track of. Board members and donors and politicians and celebrities. Each one shaking her hand. Each one scanning her with poorly hidden curiosity. Who was this woman? Where did she come from? Why was Thaddeus Crane, the grieving widower who had refused all social invitations for 2 years, suddenly appearing with someone on his arm? Denise smiled. Made small talk. Said nothing about being the nanny. Thaddeus had instructed her not to. They do not need to know our history. They only need to know you are with me. But whispers followed them wherever they went. She could hear them. Fragments of conversations that stopped when she drew near. Who is she? Nobody I recognize. She is certainly substantial, is she not? Thaddeus always did have unconventional taste. Denise kept her face neutral. Kept her spine straight. Kept walking beside Thaddeus like the comments were not landing like small cuts across her skin. She had survived worse. She reminded herself of this. Survived foster homes where children were cruel in the way only children can be. Survived a husband who called her worthless every day for 6 years. Survived a world that told her repeatedly that bodies like hers did not deserve to take up space. A few society whispers could not destroy her. But they could wound her. And wounds accumulated over time. Anyone who had ever bled knew this. The confrontation came during the silent auction. Denise was examining a painting donated by some famous artist whose name she could not pronounce. Thaddeus had stepped away to speak with one of the foundation's major donors. She was alone for the first time all evening. So you are the new project. The voice came from behind her. Smooth and sharp at the same time. Like honey poured over a blade. Denise turned. The man standing before her was handsome in the way of men who had never been told no. Blonde hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. Blue eyes that assessed her like she was livestock at an auction. Excuse me. Sterling Ashworth. He extended his hand. Thaddeus and I go way back. Princeton together. Competed for the same deals for years. He usually wins, but I like to think I keep things interesting. Denise did not take his hand. Something about this man set every warning instinct on high alert. Sterling dropped his hand. His smile never wavering. You must be special. Thaddeus has not brought anyone to this event since Cordelia died. The board was beginning to wonder if he would ever rejoin the living. I am a friend of the family. A friend. Sterling let the word hang. Waited with implication. Is that what we are calling it? It is what it is. Sterling circled her slowly. Predatory. You know, you are not what I expected. When I heard Thaddeus had finally moved on, I assumed it would be someone more appropriate. A model perhaps. Or an actress. Someone who fits the aesthetic of his world. I was not aware his world had an aesthetic. Everything has an aesthetic, darling. I knew. Sterling stopped in front of her. Let his eyes travel down her body with deliberate slowness. You do not quite fit. Do you? Too much here. He gestured vaguely at her hips. Too much there. Her chest. Too much everywhere, really. Not quite what one would expect on the arm of a man worth $18 billion. Denise felt the words land. Felt them sink into the places where all the other words like them lived. The graveyard of insults she carried inside her. But she did not flinch. Did not look away. Did not give him the satisfaction of seeing her bleed. Is there a point to this conversation, Mr. Ashworth? Just curious about the woman who has caught Thaddeus's attention. What is it about you, I wonder? What can you possibly offer him that the hundreds of appropriate women in his circle cannot? Maybe I offer him something better than appropriate. Denise kept her voice steady. Maybe I offer him genuine. Sterling laughed. A cold sound. Genuine. How quaint. Do you know what happens to genuine people in this world? They get eaten alive. Chewed up and spit out by people who understand how the game is played. Then I suppose it is lucky I am not playing a game. Everyone is playing a game, darling. The question is whether you know the rules. Sterling leaned closer. Close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. Let me give you some advice. Free of charge. Walk away now. Before you get hurt. Before you embarrass yourself and him. You do not belong here. You never will. And pretending otherwise will only make the inevitable rejection more painful. Step away from her. Thaddeus's voice cut through the conversation like a blade. He appeared at Denise's side. His face transformed into something dangerous. Something Denise had never seen before. Thaddeus. Sterling's smile widened. We were just getting acquainted. No. You were doing what you always do. Trying to tear down something I care about because you cannot stand to see me happy. Happy? Is that what this is? Sterling gestured between them. You and the help? Tell me, does she fold your laundry before or after she folds down your sheets? The slap of flesh against flesh echoed through the silent auction area. Thaddeus had moved so fast Denise did not see it happen. But Sterling was staggering backward. Hand pressed against his jaw. Eyes wide with shock. If you ever speak about her like that again, I will destroy you. Thaddeus's voice was low. Controlled. More terrifying than any shout could be. I will buy every company you own. I will pull every string I have to ensure no one in this industry ever does business with you again. I will spend my fortune making certain that your name becomes synonymous with failure. You would not. Try me. Thaddeus stepped forward. You think I care about business relationships? About social standing? About the good opinion of people like you? My wife died in my arms. My children barely spoke for a year. I have walked through hell, Sterling. And this woman, he reached back. Took Denise's hand. This woman walked into my home and brought my family back to life. She is worth more than every person in this room combined. Including me. So do not ever let me hear her name in your mouth again. The crowd that had gathered watched in stunned silence. Phones were out. Recording. Tomorrow this would be headlines. Billionaire defends mystery woman at charity gala. But Denise could not think about tomorrow. She could only feel Thaddeus's hand gripping hers. His fingers trembling slightly despite his controlled voice. The way he had just dismantled a man for insulting her. No one had ever defended her before. Not the foster parents who were supposed to protect her. Not her ex-husband who had promised to love her. Not the world that had spent 38 years telling her she was not worth defending. But Thaddeus Crane, a man who could have any woman on the planet, had just threatened to destroy another billionaire for speaking ill of her. The car ride home was silent. Denise stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, trying to process everything that had happened. Thaddeus sat beside her, close but not touching, giving her space, waiting. You did not have to do that. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Yes, I did. He is right, you know. About me not fitting in. About me being too much. He is wrong. About everything. But especially about that. Denise turned to look at him. Really look. Seeing past the tailored tuxedo and the expensive watch and the veneer of wealth. Seeing the broken man who had sat in her kitchen at 2 a.m. Seeing the father who was learning to love his children again. Seeing someone who was just as lost as she was. Why? The question encompassed everything. Why did he invite her? Why did he defend her? Why did he look at her like she was something precious? Thaddeus reached out. Took her hand again. Held it gently. Like she might shatter. Because I spent 30 years of my life believing that success was measured in dollars. In acquisitions. In the zeros at the end of my net worth. I built an empire and I thought that made me somebody. He paused, struggling for words. And then Cordelia got sick. And none of it mattered. Not 1 cent of those billions could save her. I would have given everything I had for 5 more minutes. And I could not even get that. Denise squeezed his hand. An acknowledgement. A permission to continue. After she died, I did not know who I was anymore. The man who measured himself in money suddenly had nothing worth counting. I threw myself back into work because it was the only thing I knew how to do. But it was hollow. All of it. My children were suffering and I could not help them because I could not even help myself. And then you came. His eyes found hers. Green and gold and filled with something that looked terrifyingly like hope. You walked into my house with your second-hand suitcase and your thrift store dresses and your heart so full of love that it spilled over onto everyone around you. And for the first time in 2 years, I saw my children smile. I heard my daughter's voice. I watched my son begin to heal. That was not me. That was them. They were ready. Maybe. But you gave them permission. You showed them it was safe to feel again. Safe to want again. Safe to love again. Thaddeus lifted her hand to his lips. You showed me the same thing. Denise felt tears threatening. Fought them back. She had spent a lifetime swallowing her emotions. Saving them for darkness and solitude where no one could use them against her. I do not know how to be what you need. This world of yours. The galas and the expectations and the people like Sterling who will always see me as less than. I cannot fight that battle forever. You do not have to fight alone. Thaddeus shifted closer. I know I am asking for something terrifying. I know you have spent your whole life protecting yourself because no one else would. But I am here now. Let me protect you. Let me be the one who fights beside you. You barely know me. I know enough. His voice was fierce. I know you skip meals so my children can have seconds. I know you stay up late researching Solomon's anxiety to understand him better. I know you learned sign language in 3 weeks so you could communicate with Josephine without pressuring her to speak. I know you never rest. Never stop. Never put yourself first. His hand cupped her face. Gentle. Reverent. I know you are the most selfless person I have ever met. And I know that selflessness comes from somewhere painful. From learning that your needs do not matter. That you do not matter. Denise closed her eyes. tears escaping despite her efforts. "But you matter to me." Thaddeus whispered it like a prayer. "You matter more than I have words to express. And if you let me, I will spend the rest of my life proving it." The hotel suite was on the 47th floor. They had planned to check on the children, to make sure Solomon and Josephine were settled with Mrs. Pruitt, to say goodnight before returning to the estate. But when the elevator opened, Mrs. Pruitt was waiting in the hallway. "You need to come now." Those words changed everything. Solomon was sitting on the bathroom floor, surrounded by broken glass, his sketchbook torn to shreds around him. Josephine was nowhere to be seen. What happened? Thaddeus knelt beside his son, careful to avoid the glass. "Solomon, what happened?" Solomon did not answer, just rocked back and forth, arms wrapped around himself, eyes vacant in a way that spoke of complete internal collapse. "Mrs. Pruitt." Denise's voice was calm, the crisis mode she had developed in years of childcare taking over. "In the closet." "Where is Josephine?" She went in when Solomon started breaking things. "She will not come out." Denise nodded. "Call the front desk. Have them send someone to clean up this glass. And find a first aid kit. Check Solomon's hands and feet for cuts." She turned to Thaddeus, saw the panic in his eyes, the helplessness. "Stay with him. Talk to him. It does not matter what you say. Just let him know you are here." Then she went to find Josephine. The closet was small and dark. Josephine had wedged herself into the corner behind the hanging clothes, knees drawn to her chest, face buried in her arms. Denise did not try to enter, did not try to pull her out. Simply sat on the floor outside the closet door, close enough that Josephine could hear her breathing. "It is okay, sweetheart. You are safe. Solomon is going to be okay. Your father is with him." No response. But the rigid tension in Josephine's small body eased slightly. "I know that was scary. When people we love are hurting, it can feel like the whole world is breaking apart. Like nothing is safe anymore. Still nothing." But Denise could see Josephine's fingers loosening their grip on her arms. "Do you want to know a secret?" Denise kept her voice soft, steady. "When I was about your age, I used to hide in closets too. The house I lived in was very loud. Lots of yelling. Lots of things breaking. And the closet was the only place that felt quiet enough to breathe." Josephine lifted her head slightly, just enough to peer over her arms. "I used to pretend the closet was a spaceship, that I could fly away to somewhere safe. Somewhere nobody yelled. Somewhere I did not have to be afraid." Josephine's voice came out tiny, fragile as glass. "Did you ever find it? The safe place?" Denise felt her heart crack open. Here was this child. This wounded, precious child, speaking for only the second time in over a year, asking if safety existed somewhere in this terrifying world. "I did." Denise reached into the closet, not grabbing, just offering her hand. "It took a long time. I had to go through some scary things first. But eventually I found people who made me feel safe. People like you. And your brother. And your father." Josephine stared at her hand, considering. "People can be safe places? The best safe places I have ever found have been people." Denise kept her hand extended, patient. "Would you like to come out now? We can go check on Solomon together." A long pause. The kind of pause that stretches like taffy, that contains entire universes of decision. Then Josephine reached out, took Denise's hand, let herself be guided out of the darkness. By the time they returned to the bathroom, the glass was cleaned and Solomon was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, Thaddeus beside him. their hands intertwined. Solomon looked up when Denise and Josephine entered. His eyes red from crying, but clearer than they had been. "I am sorry, Josie. I did not mean to scare you." Josephine released Denise's hand, walked slowly toward her brother, climbed onto the bathtub edge beside him. Then she wrapped her arms around him. Brother and sister, holding each other. Two wounded children beginning to heal. Thaddeus looked at Denise over their heads. His eyes filled with something she had never seen directed at her before. Gratitude, yes. But also something deeper. Something that looked terrifyingly like forever. That night should have ended peacefully. They returned to the estate. Put the children to bed. Thaddeus walked Denise to her room. Stood in her doorway. Neither of them willing to say good night. "What you did tonight." His voice was rough. "With Solomon. With Josephine. I would have lost them both. Frozen. Not knowing what to do. You would have figured it out." "No. I would not have." Thaddeus shook his head. "I have spent 2 years not figuring it out. And then you came and made it look easy. It is not easy. Nothing about loving wounded people is easy." Denise leaned against the door frame. Exhaustion finally catching up with her. "But it is worth it. They are worth it. So are you." He stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "When are you going to believe that?" Denise did not have an answer. So she said good night. Closed her door. Leaned against it until she heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. Then she slid to the floor and let herself fall apart. The collapse came 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of Thaddeus finding excuses to touch her. To be near her. To look at her in ways that made her forget how to breathe. 3 weeks of Denise pulling away. Reminding herself she was the help. Reminding herself this story did not end with the nanny becoming the princess. 3 weeks of barely eating. Barely sleeping. Pouring every ounce of herself into the children and leaving nothing for her own survival. She was reaching for a pot on the top shelf when the world went grey. Which brings us back to that hospital room. To the fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. To Thaddeus sitting beside her bed with his tie loosened and his eyes red from worry. To the conversation that cracked everything open. We have already lived through that moment. But now you understand. Now you know the 6 months that led to it. The love story that was growing despite Denise's best efforts to prevent it. Now it is time for... We have your test results. We need to talk. Thaddeus had refused to leave. Had spent the night in the chair beside Denise's bed. Had held her hand through the for insertion and the blood draws and the endless beeping of machines. "I will give you privacy." He started to stand. "Stay." Denise surprised herself by saying it. "I do not want to hear this alone." Dr. Okonkwo settled into a chair. Clipboard in her lap. "Your blood pressure was dangerously low when you arrived. Your blood sugar had crashed to levels that typically cause loss of consciousness. We found severe iron deficiency anemia. Early indicators of malnutrition despite your body weight." She looked up. Met Denise's eyes. "You are starving yourself. Perhaps not intentionally. But effectively." "I eat." "When?" "After everyone else is fed?" "Whatever scraps remain." "Half portions because you believe that is all you deserve." Denise could not argue. Could not deny what was obviously true. "I have seen this pattern before." Dr. Okonkwo's voice softened. Just slightly. In women who grew up without enough. In women who learned that their needs come last. In women who were taught that taking up space, any space at all, was something to apologize for. Denise felt Thaddeus's hand tighten around hers. "Your body is not the enemy, Miss Abra. Your curves are not a problem to be solved through starvation. But right now, your body is breaking down because you refuse to nourish it. You refuse to nourish yourself. What do I need to do? Medically? We will start you on iron supplements. Monitor your blood sugar levels. Create a nutrition plan that ensures you are eating enough to sustain basic functions. Dr. Okonkwo paused. But the physical treatment will not fix the underlying issue. Which is? Whatever happened to you that made you believe you are not worth feeding? Not worth caring for? Not worth keeping alive? The doctor leaned forward. I am recommending therapy. Not optional. Required. If you want to live, you need to understand why part of you does not. The words landed like blows. Each one striking places Denise had kept hidden for decades. She wanted to argue. To insist she was fine. To gather her second-hand suitcase and return to the estate where she could disappear into caring for others. But Thaddeus was looking at her. Really looking. Seeing all the broken pieces she had tried so hard to hide. I will do it. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. The therapy. All of it. I will do it. Good. Dr. Okonkwo stood. I will have the nurse bring the paperwork. You will be discharged tomorrow, assuming your levels stabilize tonight. She paused at the door. One more thing, Miss Abra. Yes? You are worthy of care. I know you do not believe that yet. But I hope someday you will. After the doctor left, Thaddeus did not speak. He simply moved from the chair to the edge of the bed. Wrapped his arms around Denise. Held her while she sobbed. She cried for the girl in foster care who ate standing up because sitting at the table felt like claiming too much space. She cried for the teenager who learned to skip meals so the younger children would have enough. She cried for the woman who married a man who called her worthless and believed him. She cried for 38 years of surviving instead of living. And Thaddeus held her through all of it. Not trying to fix her. Not offering empty reassurances. Just being there. In the darkness. Like she had promised to be for his children. Finally, when the tears were exhausted and her body had nothing left to give, Denise pulled back. Looked at him with swollen eyes. My first husband used to tell me I was disgusting. The words came out before she could stop them. Every time I ate, he would comment on my weight. Tell me no one would ever want me. That I was lucky he stayed because no other man would put up with a body like mine. Thaddeus's jaw clenched. But he did not interrupt. I believed him. For 6 years, I believed every word. Even after I left. Even after I rebuilt my life. Some part of me still hears his voice every time I look in the mirror. What was his name? Why? Because I want to know the name of the man I am going to destroy. Denise almost laughed. You cannot fix this by buying a company or threatening a lawsuit. Watch me. Thaddeus. She cupped his face in her hands. This is my fight. My healing. You cannot do it for me. Then let me fight beside you. His voice cracked. Let me be there while you figure out how to believe you are worthy. Let me tell you every single day until you finally accept it as truth. Why? Why do you care so much? Because I love you. He said it simply. Without hesitation. I love the way you light up when you see my children. I love the way you hum while you cook. I love the way you see straight through my defenses and refuse to let me hide. I love every curve and every scar and every broken piece of you. And I am going to keep loving you whether you believe you deserve it or not. Denise wanted to argue. To list all the reasons he was making a mistake. But something had shifted in that hospital room. Some wall had crumbled that she did not have the strength to rebuild. I do not know how to receive love. I only know how to give it. Then let me teach you. Thaddeus pressed his forehead to hers. Let me spend the rest of my life teaching you. The next 6 months were the hardest of Denise's life. Therapy forced her to excavate traumas she had spent decades burying. The foster home where food was withheld as punishment. The foster father who told her no one would ever adopt a girl who took up so much space. The shame she had internalized about her body until it became the very foundation of how she moved through the world. There were days she wanted to quit. Days she showed up to Thaddeus's home office in tears, ready to pack her second-hand suitcase and disappear. But he was always there. Patient. Steady. Refusing to let her run. And the children were there too. Solomon, who had started leaving drawings on her pillow. Birds and flowers and one portrait of Denise that made her cry because he had drawn her beautiful. Josephine, who spoke more every day. Who climbed into Denise's lap and whispered "I love you" like it was the most natural thing in the world. Slowly, painfully, Denise began to heal. She started eating meals at the table. Full portions. Sitting down. Not standing at the counter waiting for permission. She started looking in the mirror without flinching. Started wearing clothes that fit instead of clothes that hid. She started believing, just slightly, that maybe she was worth the space she occupied. 6 months after the hospital collapse, Thaddeus found her in the garden. She was kneeling among the roses. Hands covered in dirt. The evening sun casting long shadows across the grounds. He did not announce himself. Simply sat on the bench nearby. Watching her work. I spoke with Dr. Okonkwo today. Denise did not look up. She says my levels are normal. Iron, blood sugar, blood pressure. All within healthy range for the first time since she started treating me. That is wonderful news. She said I am no longer at risk of collapsing from malnutrition. Denise finally sat back on her heels. Met his eyes. She said whatever I am doing is working. Thaddeus smiled. That smile that transformed his whole face. That made him look younger and softer and entirely unlike the grieving billionaire she had met 2 years ago. You are what is working. He stood. Walked toward her. Knelt in the dirt beside her without caring about his expensive trousers. You decided you wanted to live. That is not something anyone else did for you. You helped. I stayed. There is a difference. He took her dirty hand in his clean one. Denise, I have been waiting for the right moment to say something. And I have realized there is no right moment. There is only now. Denise's heart started pounding. Thaddeus. I have loved you since the night you told me my children needed me. I have loved you through galas and hospital rooms and therapy sessions and every single day in between. And I will love you until the day I die. But I do not want to love you from a distance anymore. He reached into his pocket. Pulled out a small velvet box. I am not asking you to be my nanny. I am not asking you to take care of my children or my household or my broken pieces. I am asking you to be my wife. My partner. The person I wake up next to every morning for the rest of my life. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not the enormous diamond she might have expected from a billionaire. Instead, a simple band of rose gold with a single ruby surrounded by tiny pearls. The ruby is for your burgundy dress. The night I realized I could not live without you. The pearls are for your grandmother's earrings. The ones you wear every day because they remind you that someone once loved you without condition. Denise stared at the ring. Then at the man holding it. I do not know if I will ever fully believe I deserve this. I know. Thaddeus smiled. Gentle. Patient. That is why I plan to spend every day proving it to you. I am still broken. So am I. Maybe we can be broken together. The world will talk. Sterling Ashworth types will always look at me and see someone who does not belong. Let them talk. Let them look. Thaddeus took her face in his hands. I stopped caring about their opinions the day I watched you bring my children back to life. You are my world now, Denise. The rest of it can fall away. Denise felt tears streaming down her cheeks. But for the first time in her life, they were not tears of pain. They were tears of something that felt terrifyingly like joy. Yes. The word came out choked. Barely audible. Yes? Yes. I will marry you. I will be broken with you. I will figure out how to believe I deserve this, even if it takes the rest of my life. Thaddeus slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Like it had been made for her. Because it had been. Then he kissed her. There in the garden, surrounded by roses, with dirt on her hands and tears on her cheeks. And for the first time in 38 years, Denise Abra felt like she was home. The wedding was small. Just the four of them, Mrs. Pruitt, and a judge on the beach at sunset. Denise wore white. A simple dress that hugged her curves without apology. That celebrated every inch of the body she was finally learning to love. Solomon walked her down the aisle. Josephine scattered flower petals like confetti. Both children grinning so wide their faces might split. Thaddeus cried when he saw her. Real tears streaming down his face without shame. I thought I would never feel this again. He whispered it during their vows. I thought that part of me died with Cordelia. But you showed me that love does not die. It just finds new places to grow. Denise took his hands. Looked into his eyes. Said the words that had been building in her chest for months. I spent my whole life believing I was not worthy of love. Of care. Of taking up space in the world. And then I walked into your home. And your children showed me that I could matter to someone. That my presence could be a gift instead of a burden. Her voice cracked. She kept going. You did not fix me, Thaddeus. You simply stayed while I fixed myself. And that is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. The gift of patience. Of presence. Of believing in me even when I could not believe in myself. She squeezed his hands. I love you. Not because you are a billionaire. Not because you can buy me dresses or defend me at galas or fly me anywhere in the world. I love you because you see me. The real me. The broken, healing, learning to believe she deserves happiness me. And you love her anyway. Solomon made a gagging noise. Are they going to kiss now? Josephine giggled. That is what happens at weddings, dummy. And they did kiss. Long and deep and full of promise. And somewhere up in the clouds, Cordelia Crane smiled down at the family that was learning to live again. 1 year later, Denise stood before the bathroom mirror in her new home. Her home. Not her quarters. Not the guest room. The master suite she shared with her husband. She studied her reflection. The curves that had once been sources of shame. The fullness that she had tried to starve away. The body that carried her through 39 years of survival and was finally being treated with the respect it deserved. I am worthy of love. She said it aloud. Watched her lips form the words. I am worthy of care. I am worthy of taking up space. I am enough. Exactly as I am. I am enough. Thaddeus appeared in the doorway. Wrapping his arms around her from behind. Resting his chin on her shoulder. Say it again. Denise smiled. Met his eyes in the mirror. I am enough. Again. I am enough. He turned her around. Kissed her forehead. Her nose. Her lips. You are more than enough. You are everything. And Denise Abra Crane, formerly of foster homes and failed marriages and a lifetime of believing she did not matter, finally allowed herself to accept it. She was enough. She had always been enough. It just took someone willing to stay while she figured it out. If this story touched you, if it made you feel something, do me one last favor. Subscribe to Billionaire Stories with Mr. Lawson. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are worthy of love, exactly as they are. And leave a comment below telling me how this story made you feel. Because stories like this, stories about healing and love and learning to believe we deserve happiness, these are the stories that change lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are enough. You have always been enough. Until next time.